Right now, somewhere in the world, a human is buying a tiny sweater for an animal that does not need one. Someone is letting a dog sleep in the middle of the bed. Someone is talking to a cat in a voice they would never use with another adult. Someone is spending money on toys, treats, and a little bed the animal will completely ignore. And if an alien looked at this, it would have one question. Why are humans like this? It would have one question. Why are humans like this? Why would one species feed, protect, name, and love? Another species that cannot pay rent, do chores, or understand most of what is being said to it. So here is the question nobody thinks to ask. Did ancient humans have pets? Not medieval lapdogs, not Egyptian cats. We are going much further back than that. Back before farms, before cities, before written language, before anyone had a door an animal could scratch at. Back to the world your body was actually built for. And the answer is stranger than you might think. Because the first pet in human history was probably not a pet at all. It was a wolf. Let's start with the obvious problem. A wolf is a terrible roommate. It has teeth designed to crack bone. It eats meat you also need. It can injure a child. And if you are a hunter, gatherer 20,000 years ago, you do not have extra food lying around for emotional support animals. So why would any human let a wolf anywhere near the fire? For a long time, the standard answer was practical. Wolves helped humans hunt. They smelled danger. They cleaned up scraps. They guarded camps. Humans fed them, and eventually wolves became dogs. That is probably partly true. But it is not the whole story, because if the first relationship between humans and wolves had only been practical, it would have looked like a tool, useful when needed, discarded when not. But that is not what the archaeology shows. One of the most important clues comes from a site in Germany called Bonn-Oberkassel. In 1914, workers found an Ice Age grave. Inside were two humans buried with ornaments made from bone and antler. And with them was a dog, not a wolf. A dog. The burial is about 14,200 years old, and it remains one of the earliest clearly recognized cases of a dog buried with humans. That alone is remarkable. But the strange part came later. The dog had suffered from a serious illness when it was young. In the wild, that is usually a death sentence. But this dog survived for weeks. That means someone kept it alive. Someone fed it when it could not hunt. Someone protected it when it was weak. Someone looked at a sick animal and decided it was still worth saving. And that is the moment this story stops being about domestication and starts being about us. Utility explains why a dog might be helpful. It does not fully explain why a sick puppy was cared for and then placed in a human grave. That is not just a working animal. That is a relationship. Ancient humans did not have pets in the modern sense. No collars, no dog parks, no bags of kibble. The word pet belongs to a world of private homes and spare money. Hunter-gatherers lived in a different world. So the better question is not whether ancient humans had pets. It is whether they had animals close enough to become part of the group. And the answer seems to be yes. Dogs were the first domesticated animals. Long before cattle, sheep, goats, pigs, or horses, humans and canids had already begun crossing the line between wild and domestic. The exact timing is debated, but the clearest archaeological evidence places dogs with humans at least 14,000 to 15,000 years ago, before agriculture. That matters. Because humans did not domesticate dogs after they became farmers with barns and grain stores. Dogs entered human life while we were still mobile hunter. Gatherers before plants. We domesticated a companion. Or maybe the companion domesticated itself. One theory is self-domestication. Imagine a human camp at the edge of an Ice Age landscape. People butcher animals there. They throw scraps away. Wild wolves would notice most wolves would stay away, because humans are dangerous. But a few would be slightly less fearful. They would creep closer at night and eat what humans left behind. Those calmer wolves got more food. They survived better. Their pups inherited some of that reduced fear. Generation after generation. The ones in the middle learned to live near people. At first. Nobody had to make a plan. There was no ancient human standing by the fire saying, "I have invented the dog." There were just animals getting closer, and humans noticing. At some point, the wolf at the edge of camp stopped being only a scavenger. It barked in the dark. It followed hunters. It warned the group. And then, maybe a child gave it a piece of meat. That is the dangerous moment. Because adults can be practical, children are not always practical. Children name things, they feed things, they talk to things, they create relationships before adults. Decide whether the relationship is useful. If you want to imagine how a wild animal became a camp animal, do not only imagine hunters making a strategy. Imagine a wolf pup whining near the edge of a camp. Imagine an adult saying no. Imagine a child feeding it anyway. Most probably do not survive. But all domestication begins with an exception. One animal that should have stayed outside is allowed in. Humans are unusually good at this. We see faces everywhere. We hear emotion in sounds. We look at another creature and imagine an inner life. Sometimes we are wrong. Sometimes we are ridiculous. But maybe that mistake is one of our superpowers. A wolf looks at you, and you see not just an animal. You see a someone. Modern dogs still trigger that ancient system. They look at our faces. They track our attention. They respond to our voices. And humans are tuned back. Look at a dog tilting its head, and your brain does something embarrassingly old. It says, "That creature is in my circle." This is why the pet question is not just cute. It reveals something deep about human nature. Humans are not only social with humans. We are social beyond our species. Ancient people did not see animals only as resources. They were neighbors, rivals, prey, threats, helpers, and sometimes characters. A person 15,000 years ago may not have called a dog a pet, but they would have known which dog was nervous near the fire, which one followed children, which one stole bones, and which one slept beside the same person every night. That is social knowledge. And social knowledge is what humans are best at. This is the hard part for modern people to understand. In ancient life, the categories were blurrier. A dog could be a hunting partner, alarm system, source of warmth, playmate, and friend. The emotional and the practical were not separate. If a dog helped you hunt, slept near your child, and warned you at night, of course you might care about it. Use does not prevent love. Sometimes use is how love begins. That may be the real origin of the human-dog bond. Not humans deciding to love animals because they were cute. Not wolves deciding to become pets because humans were kind. But two social predators discovering that life was easier, warmer, and safer together. And then becoming emotionally important to each other. This is why the Bonn-Oberkassel dog matters so much. It is not just evidence of domestication. It is evidence that some Ice Age humans treated dogs as more than tools. They were burying them in meaningful places. They were caring for them when sick. They were including them in the human story of memory and belonging. That does not mean every ancient dog was pampered. Many probably had hard lives, but love does not require comfort. Attachment can exist in rough conditions, because in a dangerous world, anything that makes the night less dangerous becomes precious. A dog beside the fire is not just cute. It is warmth. It is sound. It is warning. It is another breathing body between you and the dark. For a child, it might be a playmate. For a hunter, a partner. For the whole group, an extra set of senses. And for the dog, humans were food, protection, fire, and a social world large enough to enter. This is one of the strangest things humans ever did. We expanded the group beyond humans. We made room around the fire for another species. And once we learned to do that, we never stopped. Today, the average pet dog is not guarding an Ice Age camp. It is guarding the couch from delivery drivers. The practical reasons have faded. The bond remains. Your dog does not need to help you hunt. Your cat does not need to save your harvest. But your brain still understands the old bargain. Here is another creature. It knows your routines. It waits for you. It reacts when you come home. It shares your space without words. That is not a small thing. An animal knows you in a simpler way. Not as a resume, not as a performance, not as a brand, as a body, a voice, a rhythm, a source of food and presence. That kind of recognition is ancient. So did ancient. Humans have pets? Not exactly. They did not have pets the way we do. They did not have the modern category, the consumer culture, or the little costumes. But they had something older. They had animals close enough to cross the boundary. Animals that ate near them, slept near them, warned them, followed them, played with their children, entered their stories, and lay down beside them in graves. The pet is a modern word for an ancient impulse. The impulse to look at another living thing and say, somehow, you are with us. And that may be one of the most human things humans ever did. Before we built cities, before we planted wheat, before we wrote laws, before we invented money, we made an opening in the circle of firelight, and a wolf stepped in.